We're live. It is 7:10. I'm a little bit late, and we have to leave right at 8 o'clock because it's busy time. Tonight we're talking about a few things. One of them is if you haven't already, please go check out the video that I did on spark plugs, E3 laser, educated laser platinums, and the Autolite plugs. And if you're also interested, there are spark plug tests up on indexing spark plugs and also on plug gap. So all of those are up there. You can see what kind of power gains you get from all of these if you care to take a look. As a spoiler alert, don't expect a whole bunch. And right now I'm working on a video for oil. I ran a few different oil tests. So I ran synthetic versus non-synthetic, basically cheap oil versus expensive oil, and then two different viscosities. So we'll show you the power output changes there and the changes in oil pressure and stuff. So good stuff. I'm working on that. Tonight, though, we're going to talk about water meth injection again. I know that we've talked about it many times, and we'll continue to do that because I need to test it again. Obviously, the most common comment that I got far and away was when I did the water meth test. If you haven't taken a look at that video is up. I tested the boost juice and then two different kinds of windshield washer fluid, the different temperature ranges with the different levels of alcohol in them to see if one can be substituted as an injection in place of the actual boost juice stuff. And I know people that also make their own, and that works very well. Some people use methanol only and don't have the water. Obviously, all of that is good. And so we'll talk about the basics of that, and then we'll also talk about the limitations, because that's one of the things. We got comments the other day, and I've gotten comments, especially when I posted the results of that video, when we went over all the stuff that we showed, what the change in air fuel was, what the change in charge temperature was, and then what the resulting change in power was. And there wasn't really much of a power change. When we compare that, so I've done several of these things. We did a test I've done a comparison between water methanol injection and intercooling, and intercooling almost always does better. The one thing for intercooling, and we're going to get into this a little bit, is that with intercooling, you don't have distribution problems because the distribution stays the same. It's just air. So, albeit hopefully a little colder than it was coming out of the turbo. So if you got 300-degree air coming out of the turbo and it's only 100 or 110 or 15 or 20 or whatever coming out of your hopefully efficient intercooler, and all that air goes in the intake manifold, really nothing is going to change. You could change it a little bit with positive pressure because of the way that the air enters the manifold. So you can change distribution a little bit, but that's not going to be because you have a liquid in suspension. And that's part of the problem with the water meth injection. And one of the things that we showed in one of the other tests that I did, and that was with the guys from Engine Masters, where we monitored the change in temperature, the temperature drop basically, in different cylinders. Because when we're blowing water meth into the intake manifold, especially and most specifically, these long runner intake manifolds that you find on all the modern engines. We did it on an LS, but the intake manifold design is very similar to a Hemi and a Coyote. They're long runner intake manifolds. Usually they crisscross. You've got some sort of open plenum. Sometimes, like in the case of some of the LS motors, it's convoluted. The truck manifold is a good example of that. The LS6 intake manifold, which is I think the one that we used, was less so, but still enough so that that's problematic, because the problem is that the air doesn't want to go in and turn. The manifold itself has some problems with distribution, even running NA the way that it's supposed to run from the factory. So it has problems with that. And I did that. We illustrated that test on the truck manifold when I did the nitrous distribution. So we injected nitrous and fuel in front of the throttle body going into the truck manifold. Well, before we even did that, we obviously had to monitor with 802 sensors. What is the factory distribution like? What's going on with the truck manifold? We know that we have port injection. We know that we can deliver the same amount of fuel to all the cylinders through the injectors. That's fairly easy. But the thing is the cylinder filling the same? So basically, is the power production in each one of the cylinders the same with us providing the same amount of fuel? And the answer is no, it's not. And then with the introduction of nitrous and fuel, that becomes an even more problematic thing, because the fuel doesn't want to go in and make all the turns that it needs to make evenly to all the cylinders. So some of them may get good, good amounts of the nitrous and the fuel, or the proper amounts, maybe more, maybe less. But then you have problems with cylinders developing different power and developing them at different air fuel ratios. So that's the big problem. Is one cylinder running way too lean? Is one of them running way too rich? Of the two of those, you'd rather have them run too rich. Because if you run them too lean, especially under nitrous or boost, obviously bad things can happen. So you don't want to do that. That's the benefit of the intercooler, is that you would only be fighting the same kind of thing that you would be fighting when the thing is NA, because it's not going to change that. If you have boost blowing in from the turbo, goes to the intercooler, that's not really going to change too much. It's going to be the same as not having an intercooler, basically. So that's the concern. And whenever I do any of these tests, I try to, like when we did the test on the different forms of coolant, and then with the or the windshield washer fluid, and then with the boost juice. When we did that test, we illustrated the change in charge temperature, which is good, because the water methanol usually does two things. One, it should lower the charge temperature. Latent heat of vaporization should take temperature out of the charge air, out of the heated charge air. And so it certainly does that. The other thing that it should do is act as an anti-detonant, and that's the chemical part of it. So it's going to do that based on the drop in temperature. It's going to help that situation. But also, if you have water in there, that's going to help cool the combustion chamber temperatures and reduce detonation. Also, depending on what the octane is of the fuel source that you're using, if it's methanol, that's going to also add octane, so reduce the chance of detonation. So you have lots of good things going on there, and I try to point all of that stuff out, and I did point all of that stuff out in all these videos. We know that it works. The question always is, can we get it evenly to all the cylinders? And so more often than not, after I ran that test and said, hey, look, it lowered the charge temperature, but it didn't really gain any power, and it doesn't have good distribution. So I thought I covered all of the bases when we did that. I like the Snow Performance guys. I like their system that we tested. I think it works well. It's adjustable. It does everything that I would want in a system, and the other systems would be like that as well. There are some that have more bells and whistles, and maybe a bit more tuning or whatever, and some that would have less. But that really isn't the problem. The onset and the ramp and all of that stuff, that's not really the issue. And the availability of multiple and different nozzle sizes, all of that's good. So, but the problem is still distribution. So the comments that I got and the requests that I got and the yelling and arguments that I got were that you need to test it pre-turbo, which I've never done. I've never injected the water methanol combination, or just methanol. If we did that, that would also be a possibility, because you could also adjust the things that you're injecting in there, which is what I did when we were doing the different windshield washer fluids. We did the regular stuff for hot weather, and then for cold weather, we didn't do the super cold weather one, which would be better. And then we did the boost juice. So if you change that part of it, you obviously can change things and change the benefit. But if you change that, you're just changing wherever that goes, it will do better. But it's still not going where it needs to go evenly to all of them. So you need to do that. So the theory is that if we take and inject this water methanol into the inlet side of the turbo, and this would be more so if in my opinion, and maybe the water methanol experts out there, the pre-turbo water methanol experts out there can let me know what's going on. But my guess is this would be even more effective the less water that we have in this mixture. So if we lean more toward methanol injection, their idea is that when we put this through the turbo, that and this is probably even better at higher boost levels and temperature levels, that we flash the methanol, and that it becomes gaseous, and then goes through, and then finds its way into all the cylinders nearly, or maybe at least as effectively as just the air does. I want to test that. I want to see if that's the case. I want to see if, my guess is it doesn't find its way the way that air does. But it's more than likely better than me injecting the water methanol post-turbo. So I want to see what the gain is, if there is a gain. Maybe it does everything. Maybe it just cures the whole problem, which would be fantastic for me, because I don't care which way it is. I have no vested interest in whatever the outcome is. what I have a vested interest in is finding the outcome, whatever that is. I'm all about testing. So if we do that and it's pre-turbo and it's better, like I said, we've talked about this before. I think that we're going to improve I'm not going to run it at 30 or 40 pounds. I'm going to run it at 10 pounds. We're going to improve the efficiency of the turbo, which should be illustrated there. We should see a change in charge temperature, which we definitely will. And then if I configure a turbo manifold with 802 sensors, then we can find out what's going on in terms of distribution. We could also check the ports in the manifold. We could check temperature there. We could put temperature probes in each one of them and see what's going on there. I don't know if I don't think I have 8 temperature probes to find out if the temperature distribution is the same going in all of them. But the O2 sensors would give us a lot. The other thing that we have to think about is that if we're injecting, let's say we're injecting gas and then we're running methanol injection, the stoic values for those are different. And so the amount that we're adding is going to change the air fuel mixture. And maybe that will all even out, but there's just something weird about that, about them being different and changing the value. But maybe on a lambda meter, that's not going to be an issue. So that's my test. That's what I want to do. I want to see if that works and how well it works. And even if it does work, I don't see how it can be better than an intercooler. But we'll see. Maybe it is. Maybe running pump gas and running this is the hot setup. And me personally, intercooler and E85 is right now what I would recommend to most people. It's what I do recommend to people. But maybe guys like that. So we'll see. But I want to see what the test is. I'm curious to see a pre and post test to see what happens to the changes in efficiency and changes in power, if there is a change in power. So I want to run that test. So the people that are out there that have asked for that test, that should definitely happen. I don't know when exactly it's going to happen. Maybe it could happen this next time I go down there. We'll just set the LS up really quick with that and just run it. I don't have any gap in that motor, so we can't run a lot of boost on it. I need help with an overhead issue, an overheat issue under load. Well, Clinton, you can ask your question, and then we'll a lot of guys here will help you try to answer it. I'll try to as well. So that's the test. So we want to run pre and post turbo water meth injection, and then the other thing, I've been having a conversation with somebody about, and my question was, because the other issue with this is if you run water meth injection with an intercooler, whether it's an air to air or an air to water, and you inject this stuff pre-turbo, and then it goes into the intercooler, why doesn't it puddle there? I don't understand why this mixture hitting the intercooler isn't going to fall out of suspension and you're going to have droplets there. I don't know how that's not. I mean, we see that just happen with condensation, but I don't know how that's not going to happen. So I'm told that it doesn't. But I've been told a lot of things, like your turbo motor is going to break at 10 pounds on an LS, and we know that's not the case. So I'm going to test it, and if it turns out to be that that's the case, then I'll tell you, hey, that's the case. We didn't see a whole bunch of spillage in there, because I know that when we inject water methanol, after the turbo, we see a lot of that in the intake manifold just by itself. So I don't know. We'll see. I want to see what the answer is. That's all that I care about. And then obviously when we see what the answer is, I'll bring all that information to you guys. So our poll will be, will the pre-turbo injection of water meth or just meth? And the other issue is it's going to depend on what we test, what manifold we test this with. The long runner intake manifolds would be the most prevalent ones, although a lot of guys would be using Holley high rams. I think that probably would be better in terms of distribution for a water meth setup. So it'd be interesting. The other thing you could do is sandwich one in between the lid and the base on a high ram and inject it in there, but that's not pre-turbo. So will the pre-turbo injection of water meth or just meth cure the distribution problem? So let's see what people have to say, and then I can get to our questions. Clint, Third Coast, thank you very much. Let's see if you asked your question in here. I'm gonna scroll back and see what we got going on, and then we will catch up to you. 1 Liter Mafia's in the house. Gene, Uncle Squirrel, Alan, the whole gang's here. Shane, I'm on pump 93 with air to air and also spring water meth. IATs are 90 degrees after pass. We will get some BMW inline 600 test. That's not scheduled for a long time. I don't have one of those, and I've never run one of those on the engine dyno. 3 cows in the house. Daniel C. Hit the like button. Everyone hit the like button. It shouldn't be buffering a lot. We should be doing well. Well, let me get my mic. And we are, for those of you that maybe have said something already, we're already on live chat. Yep, I see, Alan. I'm ahead of you. What's the best cam for torque on a Gen 6 454? There's no best one, but there are lots of good ones. Something like the 276 or smaller for they make Gen 6 specific versions for the cams. Robert, is it you guys are getting snow? See, a single plane intake would be another one that might have. It's still going to have distribution issues. They have distribution issues just running a carburetor on them or blowing through them because they have longs and shorts. So even if you got an even amount of air to all of them, they're going to make different power. The runners are going to make different power at different RPM ranges. And so what happens is the air fuel mixture changes during the RPM range. So it's a little bit of work to get it all the same. Your James Bond music. So Karen, you don't hate water meth. It's just you have to tune for it. You do. That's right. And I showed that in the video where we were running the different versions of that and how much it changed the air fuel mixture. I met a dude yesterday who swears by Prolong. Good. I only used meth and injected in the turbo housing on the pressure side. Probably going to play around with the location. Do you feel better about water meth if it's port injected? I do, but then we have a trade-off with that too. We could get equal distribution, I think, that way, but we're not going to get the same amount of cooling. We probably would get similar. We're not going to get the same charge cooling benefits, I don't think, but we should get the same anti-detonant stuff. But I don't know if we're going to vaporize it there or not. But maybe we could inject less there if we did a direct port. Had to add some antifreeze to the car. Going to be single digits. Yeah, that's cold. What about making an 8-into-1 spider and boosting velocity stack injection? I don't know what that. You have to draw me what you're thinking there. Adding water to the charge mixture seems wrong to me. Yeah, it's not a fuel, so it's not going to burn, but it does help with. It does help suppress detonation, though. So if you're getting into detonation, and you add water and you add the right amount, it can be beneficial. What's going on with my thing over here? Here we go. Now we're doing good. We aren't flying World War II planes. Straight methanol injected pre-turbo would be an extreme fire hazard. 50% would be safe, max for safe use. That was the idea advisor had on the Edelrock Vera injection back in the day to aim it to impinge on the throttle body or in a 2 or 4 barrel single overhead Camp Pinto into the Venturi booster. There's a company called Sonotech in my hometown that makes ultrasonic spray nozzles. They could make the finest mist imaginable with that. If you had the pressure going to it, right? Everyone here is completely wrong. Wow. Bold move. I've been injecting methanol and ethanol pre-turbo for 15 years. I've never once had a hint of fire. I'm not worried about the fire aspect of it. I mean, maybe on a backfire or something like that, but I'm not concerned about that. My concern is what is it going to do for power and distribution. I also have not run an intercooler on a vehicle in 20 years, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that intercoolers don't work and that every form of motorsports that uses forced induction uses intercooling. And with intercooling, you can make a lot more power because you can run ice water. I run an intercooler with E85 and M1 as fuel. That's all of it there. And also there's got to be impeller wear, right? Turbo Centra, I have had some meth in the intercooler on low boost or so, but on 20 pounds, there's no cooling. Okay. Can you spray E85? I don't see why you couldn't. But the methanol is probably going to be better for cooling. What level of boost can we use with a studded 2-bolt mains on a 496 big block with a forged rotating assembly? Some say it's limited to 7 pounds. The boost is not the thing. The thing that you'd be concerned about is power. So if you have a 496 that has a stock cam and stock heads and a 2-barrel intake manifold on it, 7 pounds isn't going to make any power. But if you have a 496 that makes 600 horsepower, let's say, then you're going to be up near 900 horsepower with 7 pounds. So those are whole different things. You're waiting nervously for the poll. Then you shouldn't be anxious about it. We've got, let's see. Will the pre-turbo injection of water meth or just meth cure the distribution problem? 73% are saying no, 27% are saying yes. What are we discussing here? We're discussing water methanol injection before the turbo or after the turbo. Or not either or, but testing both. Let's see. Grand Nationals and Cyclones are only 2 bolts and run 15 pounds. I monitor EGTs on all the cylinders. Individual plenum intake, run any Ecotech stuff. EGTs don't really tell you air fuel mixture. They also tell you timing and other things. The turbo acts like an event horizon. Black hole. If I could drive my race car on the street, I'd probably sell it. On your spark plug test earlier today, my only question with the different brands, which one will hold the more cylinder pressure from a turbo application, or do you believe all modern spark plugs will? I don't think you'll destroy the plug, like blow it out or anything. I typically don't use copper core stuff on high boosted stuff. We run the Denso Iridiums on the Bonneville stuff and on the Big Bang motors, but only because they were there. I've never tried the copper ones. I think traditionally copper core plug wires tend not to last as long. They wear out before the precious metal stuff does. That's why they use them on the OEM applications. I got rid of the water method distribution problem by running a nozzle to each intake runner rather than a nozzle at the intake tube. My time slips to the drag strip showed some improvement. I'm not even thinking so much that it would change power. I'm just thinking that it would change safety. It's like when I did the test on the single plane 4-barrel manifold, and we did a carburetor, we did fuel injection with batch fire, and then we did fuel injection with sequential, and then we did fuel injection with sequential and individual cylinder trimming. And we could get the cylinder trims the way that we wanted it. We could get the airfield the same in all the cylinders. But quite honestly, it didn't really do very much to power, hardly anything at all. And I was very disappointed. I'm like, oh, look, that one's way too lean and that one's way too rich. And now we can adjust this and have it be right all the way through the curve on all the cylinders. Because again, this is a single plane manifold, so you got different runner lengths. So they want to make power, and they have different airfield curves during the run at different RPMs. So we could adjust all of that with sequential injection with individual cylinder trimming, which was awesome. I thought, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to tune myself out. There's going to be some serious power here. No, it's like when I do the tests on air fuel ratio as a global thing, when we're taking it like in the header collector, and we go from 11-1 to 12-1 to 13-1 and think, oh, there's going to be a ton of power here. There's really not. How often you check the calibration of your OT sensors, especially when running 8 of them? Time over resistance is a real thing. You mean how often does Westech calibrate their sensors? The distribution problem that we would have would not be an O2 sensor problem with the test rig. It would be an unequal distribution from the manifold and from the amount of fuel going in there. I currently run it in both pre-turbo and on the pressure side of the compressor housing, still making 4-digit power with 4 cylinders. Current applications of some 6-cylinder. Okay. What? No, but see, you're trying to argue the 4 side of that by not providing any data. You're just saying, oh, my cousin runs 9s or 6s or whatever it is. That's not data that we're looking for. What we're looking for is distribution data. What we want to know is, what is it in this cylinder and this cylinder and this cylinder and this cylinder? What does it do? Not that it went out and worked. We could, like I said, we've done a lot of that, but that's not data. What we want is test data. We want to know, what is it actually doing? Okay, it worked. That's fine. You could go out and run it. That's good. But where are the air fuel ratios? That's what I want to see. What about instead of intercooling and look at the cost and fitting implementation along with the temperature rejection? So you're looking at it for cost versus cooling. Let's see. Scrolling back to check. I thought that this was already asked, but maybe I didn't get there yet. How do you know the intake is making different power on all cylinders if you're not measuring EGTs? We don't have to measure EGTs to determine power. I know for a fact that different runner intake manifolds are going to be making different power during the RPM range. That's how intake manifolds work. I know that because I've tested intake manifolds and made them all short and then made them all long, and then there's a difference. And then I've made them short and long and saw what happened with that because I've had adjustable manifolds. So we know that it does that. I think I missed that question though. A lot of racers who run M1 have no intercool because the weight. No, that's true. If the balance is I can get another 100 horsepower, but the weight is more than offsets that power gain. I mean, I don't think it's going to be 100, and it might be at some of these 2,000 or 3,000 horsepower deals. But the weight takes that away. Then yeah, why run it unless there's a safety thing there? Let's see. I keep going down too far. Richard, what is your daily driver? Mine's a Chevy Silverado and it's all stock. One reason why people use a 5149 mix of water meth is the mixture isn't considered hazardous material. Nice. So they get around that. We're not discussing whether water methanol injection works. We know that it does. We've gone over that, and I've tested it many times. The question now is we want to test it pre-turbo and post-turbo just to see what the difference is. Sonotech sprays with ultrasonic frequencies, not pressure. Cool. Ideally, a 2011 built 6-liter V3 Vortec on E85 and snow performance. And I love it. Brings my charge temperatures down 25 to 30 degrees, depending on the mixture. It's actually more efficient without an intercooler. It's a bold statement. What had gaskets did you use on the Gen 6? We use Felpro stuff normally. Richard, twin turbo LQ9, 45 millimeter turbos, air to air cooler, comp, 454 cam. Is that just a statement or is that a question? All of that seems like it's good. Yeah, the design of the intake might influence more than the nozzle placement. Spring moonshine should be the next experiment. we did test running moonshine. Have you done 6-to-1 compression? I have not. Clint, L83, 225, 231 cam, Texas Speed Stage 4, long tubes, 180 thermostat, 212 degrees cruising at 80 miles an hour, and it climbs at 260 degrees. Let off and it drops to normal really quick. It climbs at 260 degrees driving down the road. Do you have a clog somewhere? Is the water pump not spinning? Is the thermostat stuck? I would check all the normal things. Is there enough fluid in the system? Check all the normal stuff first. Is it got an air pocket? I wouldn't inject water before an intercool. Well, on the turbo stuff that they're talking about, unless they're the guys that I talked to were also running some of them were also running intercoolers. So they were injecting water methanol or just methanol pre-turbo with an intercooler. And maybe so that they could run it on 91 or something. When we run, T, your question is 8 widebands. We run 8 widebands, so 1 in each port to see what's going on. I think you need to test straight methanol first in the kit, then see if the hype products get anywhere close. I don't know what you mean by the hype products. How about testing the centrifugal supercharger? That way the impeller doesn't get heat soaked from the exhaust side. Have you ever felt what the impeller feels like? Okay, so pre-turbo injection is going to kind of up the gains when a compressor wheel wouldn't normally be out of its efficiency zone, not really going to do much for distribution. Okay, so that's your vote. What is the power limit on 2-bolt mains on a big block Chevy? I don't know. You're going to have to tell us. I don't ever try to run the maximum amount of power on a 2-bolt main big block Chevy. That's not what I pick. I've replaced the entire system. I've tried 3 different fluids, flushed the system 5 times, used 160, 180, and 207-degree thermostats. Still nothing. Is there something in front of your radiator? $1,000 on all aluminum 3-core radiators and no change. Do you have a cracked head or cracked block or a blown head gasket? Richard, when you do the test, it would be also interesting to inject the E85. I have a friend doing a 331 Ford bill with stock roller blocks. She run oil restrictors, drag racing engine with a 680 lift cam. Where are you going to put the oil restrictors at? I don't think I've ever run oil restrictors in those unless it was a dart block. Nova, I don't have a part number. I don't know what the number is. I have to be down at West Tech to look at it and see. I don't know those off the top of my head. The owner of Snow Performance told me that minus 30 windshield washer fluid plus 2.5 bottles of heat gets you to the same level of methanol as his boost juice. Good. So Racer D is suggesting that you pin the 2 bolts, and he's saying that it's as strong as a 4 bolt. Downdraft injection as an 8 individual throttle bodies. What if you made it an 8-into-1 spider that hooked them all together and boosted it? So you mean take all of the runners and put it in a common plenum and basically just make a manifold out of it and then blow into that common plenum like every other manifold? I'm going to run no intercooler with my blow-through Pro Charger setup on E98. Okay. What's the maximum compression ratio on a 5.3 Ford bottom end on E85? You can't get the static compression too high on a 5.3 to worry about getting there. You can't make everything small enough. You can't make the chamber small enough and the dome big enough to worry about. You can on E85 you could run anything that you could throw at it because you just can't get there with that kind of displacement. Blind guy, did you see my power enrichment mode comment? I did not. Where was it? I'll scroll back and see if I can find it. You need to get one of your tuner buddies to turn on the power enrichment mode in your Silverado. You don't lose any fuel mileage. You just gain your power enrichment mode at more realistic times. I can ask about that. System test and compression test all checks out. I see fluctuations in the fuel trims and O2 readings, but the tuner says it's nothing on his end. Are those 5.3 LSs that you turned into 500 horsepower with a stage 4 cam and fast intake street driving cars? They're not in cars. They were just on the dyno. And they're pretty big cams. So with a stick car, if you don't mind a rumpy idle, that they could be driven on the street, but they're not what I'd call it. I wouldn't have it in my daily driver. User pipe. We talked about that. I don't know why it wouldn't. Why if we do a pre-turbo injection, how it's not going to pool on an air-to-air or an air-to-water intercooler. Is a 194 the biggest valve you can run with a stock Fox body piston? No, you can run a 202. It just depends on the camshaft. Depends on how long you're hanging it down there. That's right, Lucas. If you've got too much fuel, you may as well add nitrous to it. This 5.3 that's L33 is doing pretty well right now. Well, with a cam and an intake, it's making good power. I think we could get this thing over 500, but we're gonna have to do a cylinder head for it. I have a 5.7 LS6 with heads and an MSD intake and a catless exhaust that makes just under 500 wheel horsepower and drives great in my vet. That seems like seems like a whole lot. Tyler, I don't know. People have asked me about putting the big valve heads and stuff in there, and you have to measure it. If you're going to put a camshaft in there and you're going to put a 202 valve head on there, you have to mock it up and you have to measure piston to valve clearance. There's no way around that. Does water methanol mask a problem or add any value? It does. It can add value. It can help suppress detonation. It's mostly used for the guys that are using it are the guys that are trying to do what they're doing, the crazy stuff that they're trying to do, and they're trying to get away with doing it on pump gas, which I am against, actually. But I think if you're going to run a turbo and you're going to run 20 pounds or whatever, that you should be doing it on E85. But they want to do it on pump gas and do it and then augment it with this other system. And if they're doing it and getting away with it, that obviously works. The power enrichment mode on your daily driver truck, if you get one of your tuner buddies to change the parameters of that, it makes the truck work a lot. I don't know what you mean by work a lot better. The truck works fine right now. I don't ever race it around. I've made over 1,100 on my current 2-bolt 468. Dean, that's what we normally do. Brule and I are both on the same page with that. When we run a motor and like when we're doing a nitrous test and we run nitrous and we go, oh, that the jetting that they supplied, that's too rich. We don't take fuel jetting out of it. We just add nitrous jetting because obviously it's got excess, so it clearly wants more. Some of the GMC vehicles have fuel enrichment turned off for 2 to 3 minutes. Is the fuel enrichment is turned off? Are you talking about when you get on the throttle? Like, I don't know what this fuel enrichment that people are talking about is. I mean, I know what fuel enrichment is, but I don't know specifically what this part of the tune is. Cheap subsidized D85. Got to throw the political things in there too. People. Would a Lenati flat tappet cam be an upgrade for my stock L29 cam? I don't know which cam you're talking about. It's possible to get a flat tappet that will make more power than your hydraulic roller. I don't know why you'd step down to a flat tappet cam, maybe price. Otherwise, put a hydraulic roller on there. I was able to run 30 degrees of advance at 20 pounds. I don't know how much timing does your thing want? Does it normally want 40? Then 30 is not that big a deal. Richard, I have a 6-liter in my Silverado on Trailblazer SS, 1.75 E-fan. Looking at the Truck Norris BTR said only 3 horsepower difference on a 5.3 with an NSR. Is a regular one worth it? Yeah, the regular one probably will, and it was a little bit more than that actually. But a regular one, the higher lift version, will probably be worth more on your 6-liter than it was on the 5.3. I don't know how much, not by a lot. And it's, you can go, you'll do well with either one of them. Either one of them will do what you want. And if you're going to change the springs anyway, then get the one that needs the springs. Clint, yeah, the tune could certainly cause the thing to run hot, but I still think it's a does it do it only while driving under load? Will it do it if the truck is sitting there, like with the cap of the radiator off? Can you see any movement if you're just revving the engine at that RPM? Has he switched the fans off? Are the fans turning on? Is a delay of 90 seconds at 5,000 RPM? I mean, I would never be at 5,000 RPM for 90 seconds. So how do I get a 5.3 to 400 to 450 horsepower with stock pistons, stock springs, and a stock bottom end? I don't know. What did that, I can't remember what the NSR cam made. I don't think it made quite that much. Let's see. You can easily do it with boost, obviously. So the Truck Norris cam was 420, I think. Yeah. Just putting the Truck Norris cam in, or so you put something bigger in than that, like that. We tested the Sloppy Stage 2. The Sloppy Stage 2 made a little bit more than that. And so that would be in that range. Stock springs, you're going to have to use the NSR version of the Truck Norris cam. What do you think TSP Chupacabra for my 5.3 Avalanche? I've looked at the specs on that, and that cam should work well. They were talking about sending me one. I don't know if that ever came through. The testing that I bought, I know you prefer E85 over pump gas and water meth. Have you ever tried water meth with E85? I did. The testing that I did was on E85. I did. I mean, I wasn't doing it to try to save myself like running 91 and running more boosts that I should be running on 91, and then curing the potential disaster with with water methanol injection so that you can get away with that. I haven't ever done that. Whenever I'm doing testing on the dyno, we're doing it like safely, and the E85 is so cheap; it's right around the corner. It's easy for me to get. So I was really only interested in not in let's run 91 and let's run only a certain amount of timing and a certain amount of boost, and then when we cure it with like we would with an intercooler or 85 or water methanol injection, now we can do more. We kind of know that that's the case. But my problem is when I put E85 in it, I know E85 is getting evenly to all the cylinders. I don't know when I inject something into the tube after the turbo or before the turbo that it's all getting in there evenly. And so that's why in my opinion, an intercooler in E85 is the ideal choice. But we all can't have that though. Yeah, Daniel, I agree. That's what I mentioned, that it seems like an air pocket. The throttle body has to be at 80 or 90% open for up to 60 seconds for more power enrichment load comes in, more fuel timing, etc. I've never been at 90% throttle for 60 seconds in that truck. Never. Is 30 pounds of boost on a Turbo 3 all forward sustainable? You mean, can you do it? Or do you mean, can you run 30 pounds sustained with LS9 head gaskets? We ran ARP head studs and LS9 gaskets on the Big Bang motor, and we ran it at 30 pounds. So yeah, it's possible. Do more smaller nozzles work better than a single larger one? Maybe if you could place them and improve distribution, that might be better. Daniel, that's a good point. We did on the Big Bang motor, we did use the CA625 ARP studs. If I send you some Turbo Factory 3R rods and pistons for a barrel, would you gap the rings to 2024, hone it, and slap it back together in the NA barrel you have to do a Big Bang on? We wanted to run that thing stock, but that would be a good upgrade. But doing forged rods and forged pistons isn't a Big Bang, then that's not stock. Let's see. It's only while accelerating over 65 to 70 plus. Set the cruise on 80 or 85. It will just climb and climb and climb until you let off the gas. Sixty seconds will be a full mile and a half past close to 200 probably. If everything went well. It's not going to be 200 in the truck. 3R rods are factory turbo rods. Turbo barrels are $4,500. $4,500. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is we wanted to run this NA motor stock with ring gap, and then probably head studs and probably the stock head, maybe with cams or springs or something like that, and then run it like that and see what happens, and then take it to some power level, and then upgrade it later on. But I am interested in doing that. But like I said, it's not a big bang thing unless the bottom end is all stock. Did I miss an update on the Big Bang V6? Nope, you didn't. What drives you, Richard, to sit there and talk with this? It's car guy stuff. I'm a car guy. Let's see. Would you ever lower the compression on LS build to run higher boost on pump gas, not E85? The rule of thumb in 90s turbo cars was 9-1 or below if you want the best boosted power or safety. I've yet to see any definite data on that. We know that all the early turbo cars were running very, very low compression, mostly because they didn't have good knock sensor technology. And in the case of the Porsche, they had air-cooled motors, which tended to be more problematic. But no, I wouldn't lower the compression. The factory compression is already in the low to mid nines on these cars anyways. A lot of guys way back in the day were putting 317 heads on them, and that would obviously lower the compression. But I just don't know. To do that test, you'd need to have detonation sensing knock sensors, and you'd have to run whatever combination of, hopefully the air intake temperature would be the same, and the intercooling would be the same, and the exhaust would be the same. So you'd have to find out what combination of boost and timing you could run with the low compression deal, and then what combination of boost and timing you could run with the higher compression deal using let's say 91 octane. The other problem with that scenario is that when you change the static compression with a 317 head, you're also changing the chamber design. So it's not just, the static compression is going to change the detonation threshold, but the chamber design, which on the 317 is not great. I don't know if it's more or less sensitive to detonation. I think it's more, but it's not a great design for certainly not for power anyway. So you have to deal with that. Would the 85 show gains in high compression NA motors? It does. It shows gains on Coyotes. It showed gains on LT motors on the direct injected stuff. And I would imagine on higher compression, it doesn't really show anything on a junkyard LS or small block Chevys or small block Fords when I've run them. It doesn't really do anything on those. Might do a little bit down low. We're just busy working out. How every other red-blooded car guy ticks. Yeah, right. I'd like to see gapless rings. I ran gapless rings on my Engine Masters motor, but I wouldn't do it on a turbo motor. It's just not necessary. Yeah, blind guy. There is that in the car community, but there is in every group of people. If you ever played on a football team or a baseball team or lacrosse or chess or robotics or whatever it is, any group of people that you get together, heck, your family is a perfect example. There's always a crazy weird uncle. There's always a problematic dude that wants to shout out whatever political nonsense he's into, or tinfoil hats or all that, whatever. There's always going to be those guys. There always is in any group. So that's part of the deal. And we've all been around long enough to realize that. Eric, I don't remember telling people that their car was slow. I'm not going to talk about somebody's mama. That's not good. Any updates you can share on the Trophy 4-cylinder? It's at the machine shop. I think the machine work's probably done. We might be waiting on the camshaft. I need to call them tomorrow. No, cream corn is just all bad. There's nothing good about cream corn. All of the other corn varieties are good. Corn on the cob is really good, especially when it's in season. Would I see any gains by going full E85 on a 462 valve cam, Vortec air-to-air intercooled? Yes, definitely. If you're running pump gas right now, you'll definitely see a change going to E85. Would EGTs help track distribution during a test? No, only if you could correlate them with air fuel meters in each cylinder. Because the problem with EGTs is that you can alter the EGTs by changing timing, which you aren't going to do when you change the mixture. Dean, just no. There's just so many no's there. Not even close. How can I get an extra 100 horsepower to my 97 Honda Accord with boost? Cornbread is good, though. 200 cubic inches. I think you pull 1 horsepower per cubic inch. 200 horsepower. Yeah, it's got enough head flow to do that, especially with the aluminum head and stuff. I did see the new Bruce. I did see the new blueprint engine. We got 2 more minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and close our poll at 69%, saying that they don't think that'll change the distribution. I think we could flash all of the. If we just use methanol and we flash all of the methanol, there might be something there. I'd be more inclined to think that it would do that without an intercooler involved in that. So we didn't. I'm still thinking I can't get past the visualization of all of this cold air or whatever. Cold, densely populated, moistured air just hitting the intercooler and not coming out of suspension. I can't get past that. Maybe that's not going to happen. But I think with if we can flash just the methanol, and then maybe we could get better results from that. So we'll end our poll there. What's an old cam company that went out of business? Is Crane still in business? We use Anderson water methanol injection, which places the makeshift jet into a Vortec supercharger. So are you doing it going into the impeller, or are you doing it on the discharge side? Nathan, I don't have any LSA superchargers, unfortunately. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. I'll be back in the morning-ish afternoon. Got lots of stuff going on in the morning because I'm doing trading, and then it's really, really easy to spend hours and hours doing that, and I have to stop myself. But it's all good and it's all learning, so it'll be good. That may make it so that I'm able to do even more and more testing, which will be even better for everybody. It's certainly me and certainly you guys. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow.